Hey everybody, and welcome to an Electronic Banking Basics Monday. Now on this Basics of Banking Monday, we're going to talk about operating circulars. What is an operating circular? When it comes to the financial structure of how the Federal Reserve banks are going to work and operate, and we've got a video on the Federal Reserve banks, and this actually stemmed from the video. In fact, what's interesting, the way this video ended up getting made is I was in a conversation recently with some people, and I sat there and it's like, oh, just go read OC3, it's in there. But I warn you, it'll probably put you to sleep while you're reading it. And they looked at me like, what's he talking about? And I realized they didn't know, so I was like, well, go read Operating Circular 3. And they still looked at me like, what in the world is he talking about? And so I stopped and I explained what the operating circulars are, especially what Operating Circular 3 is. And I'll get to that in a second. So back to it. What's happening in our financial structure? Well, the way that the Federal Reserve banks work and operate, and we talk about what they do in that another video, is that they are governed by rules and regulations. So we have regulations that tell us how to work with certain things. Like we see Regulation J when it comes to checks and wires. We got Regulation CC when it comes to working with checks and funds availability. So those regulations, and there's many more, they tell the Federal Reserve Bank what they've got to do, the laws and the rules which they got to follow. Now, to make that easier for us to understand, they've created the operating circulars. And the operating circulars will be specific information based on the rule and regulation as to how the Federal Reserve Bank is going to operate. And there are many operating circulars out there. Let's start with Operating Circular 1. Operating Circular 1 deals with maintaining, opening, and terminating or closing a master account with the Fed. So it's really dealing with having an account with the Fed. Operating Circular 2 now, it deals with cash. We get to Operating Circular 3, which I mentioned earlier. Operating Circular 3 is going to be applying to the handling of all cash items that are accepted and forwarded for collection and returned checks that are accepted. So Operating Circular 3 mainly going to deal with checks. We get to Operating Circular 4 now. Operating Circular 4 applies to the clearing and settlement of commercial automated clearinghouse credit and debit items by the Federal Reserve banks. If we look more specifically, Operating Circular 4 is what you will see that is applying to ACH items. And for example, just to give you an idea what you will find in the operating circulars, if you go to Operating Circular 4 and you look in Appendix B, it outlines a time schedule of when the Federal Reserve Bank is going to be working and accepting and working and dealing with and processing of the ACH items. It outlines their windows, and that's real important with things like same-day ACH or something becomes next-day ACH. It tells us what are the cutoff times within the day to be able to get things in there. Other things you'll see in there is it defines like what's a banking day. So that's important stuff. If we go into Operating Circular 5, it's really simple just to think about it this. It's electronic connections, and it's establishing and maintaining your connection for the transferring of data from the Federal Reserve Bank. So Operating Circular 6 is going to work with Regulation J when it comes to the transfers or funds transfers that are made through the FedWire Funds service. We get to Operating Circular 7, and Operating Circular 7 is going to deal with how the Federal Reserve Bank maintains security accounts and effects the transfers in the book entry securities and those participants that are involved. Operating Circular 9 was recently retitled Treasury Investments and Collateral Securing Public Funds and Financial Interests of the Government to reflect the full scopes of its coverage. So it says it all in the name. Treasury, investments, and collateral securing public funds and financial interest. Okay. Operating Circular 10 contains the terms under which any entry may obtain advances from or incur obligations to a pledge for collateral to the Federal Reserve banks, and there is no Operating Circular 11. We skip on to the final Operating Circular 12. Drum roll, please. Bum, 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 bum. Operating Circular 12 contains the terms under which the Federal Reserve Bank provides certain settlement services through the National Settlement Service. Had a video talking about FRB, what it does, and National Settlement Service being one of those abilities or capabilities or services that it offers. And I've even done a video on the National Settlement Service. So if we look at Operating Circular 12, it gives us a little bit more detail on how the National Settlement Service or NSS operates. Now that concludes our our electronic Basics of Banking Monday. I hope you guys learned something new about the operating circulars, and if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments, send me a message, or send me an email at kevin@paymentsprofessor.com. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.